the most important parts of my identity, I think about two things. Spirituality. That's what I don't usually talk about too, so I'm glad we're here talking about it. I am a spiritual person, a very spiritual person. I don't really identify with a particular religion, but I believe we're spiritual beings living on a physical plane. Hate to sound real woo-woo, but that's what I believe. And you know, in this world that I live in, spirituality rules my life in terms of my decisions, and it's actually been a really good mirror for not so good things that I've done and experienced in my life. It's been really helpful. So that is one of the things that rules my life. The other thing I'm learning is actually masculinity, how I identify with myself as a man. And that's something that I've struggled with, but I've also learned to embrace. And on the days where I feel super confident and I'm out there and my posture is out, I feel great. And on the days where maybe I'm not doing well at work or just a lot's happening, it's really difficult for me. So it's a thing that I struggle with, but it's also part of my identity, and especially being a black man. I mean, let me just be straight with it. I'm on a stage a lot, and I'm a black man with a bald head and wide shoulders, and that makes me feel powerful. So that's something that's important to my identity, spirituality and masculinity. So growing up, there were a few things. Number one, there was fear and shame. When my parents spoke about mental illness or mental health challenges, they spoke about it with a very condemning tone. It's not something you wanted to have, and no one could know about it. And also, it came from a culture where there was constant humiliation. Like, if you got in trouble, you got humiliated. That's how my parents knew to parent. And I guess in their minds, they thought it was a good thing because they were giving me tough, hard lessons and helping me out. So you had those two things. Plus, you know, I always think of Rodney King, and we heard about, I guess it's 1993 or whatever. I'm gonna get the date wrong, but that's okay. But Rodney King, a black man, was beaten by the police during his arrest in California. And at that point, I was in sixth grade, the end of sixth grade. My parents had a real talk with me about being black here in America. And what that did is it put a lot of fear in me. Like, I now am a living liability. I gotta watch my back at all times. So you've got this humiliation thing where, you know, I don't wanna be humiliated. And I've got fear and shame just around mental health in general, plus this liability of being a black man in America, and something could happen to me. So you put all that together. I didn't want to share about my experience at all, even with mental health professionals. When I was struggling, I was in school. I was in elementary school, and you know, there are things you do in elementary school where you're supposed to have fun and laugh together in class and do fun things. I miss those days, by the way, I really do. And, now I gotta be an adult, but that's a whole nother conversation. But in elementary school, I remember that, you know, we'd be having fun and doing fun things, and even with my family, I'd be doing fun things, but I'd be feeling an intense anger, wanting to explode. And the only thing I can compare it to is the Incredible Hulk, just like waiting to come out. And the other thing that made me realize something was wrong was my behavior. I was constantly getting in trouble. I thought I was a bad kid. I just was constantly getting yelled at, and you know, I'd punch my little brother, I'd do this or that, and I just couldn't keep it together. And so it was at that point my parents started to seek help for me because they knew something wasn't right, and again, I knew something wasn't right. And at the same time, there's that shame, you know, feeling ashamed about it, because we live in a world, like, let's just face it, where even if you're lazy in this world, like, you still want to be successful at some level. And I thought that having these mental health issues was just going to be the end of everything for me. Like, I like almost like I was a criminal at that point and going to be put away. So that was something that, starting in elementary school, I was living with. How did people around me respond? Well, my parents were just trying to get me the help that they could. They did the best they could. I am so grateful to this day for all of their efforts to take me to different doctors, and my dad having to take me to the emergency room constantly because I was in a rage. And you know, they told me that no one could ever really learn about my mental health challenges. They made that clear that this was going to be a liability. They pretty much, said it in those words. No one can find out about this. They really wanted me to be successful. They loved me. They cared about me. They wanted the best for me and my younger brother. My extended family, that's interesting. They really didn't respond. Like, I'm sure they knew what was going on, but nobody would talk about it. And I could sense when people treated me differently. I could, and to be very honest with you, even nowadays, I had an issue over a year and a half ago with some family members where I acted out. I was a jerk. And things are different, and it's weird because if I had cancer, I wonder if, they would just totally ignore me. They'd probably ask me, how's your treatment coming along? How are you doing? But, people don't ask about how my mental health is doing, So that's been an interesting thing. In terms of my friends, none of my friends really knew because my parents said to keep it quiet. Nowadays, it's great. All my friends know, and my friends are really good. I have some amazing friends who check in on me constantly, and I always say, like, I'm the luckiest person. We're here in New York City, and you know how it is in New York City, like, we're all busy doing our thing, but every time I'm back in town, not traveling, I get to meet with cool people who just want to hang out with me and go to lunch with me and laugh in the park, and it's great. And I'm open with them about my mental health challenges now, and that's an okay thing. But even now, family has a weird time talking about it. It's just an uncomfortable subject, and I get that, because how do you bring it up with someone? I actually have an uncle who has schizophrenia, and even though we both, struggle with mental health challenges, when I talk to him, I don't really know how to ask him about how he's doing with it or where he's at with it. So it's an interesting thing, but at the end of the day, I've had to find my own support network. It's been tough, but it's been a really cool process. Self-care, one of my favorite subjects. Actually, I had to tell you this. My friends, whenever they call me, and especially if they're going through a rough time, before they even tell me about what they're going through, they let me know what they're doing in their self-care, because I'm like the self-care witch because I'm always talking about it. And self-care has been really important to me. And what I do for self-care is, number one, I'm under the guidance of a mental health professional, and everything I do is with the guidance of a professional. And I actually have a treatment team, so to speak. So I have my therapist, I have a psychiatrist who helps me with my medication. I actually really like her because she, a lot of people think, psychiatrists just medicate you. That's not true. They're trying to help you solve your challenges, make the symptoms better, whatever it is, make it easier to cope. And she actually, most of our sessions, she draws pictures of the brain and explains to me how my brain works, how it's working with the medication, how it works when I'm angry. So it's really interesting. And I could always tell that she was that geek in school that really liked that stuff. I was totally not that person. In addition, I have a mental health support group, and peer support is everything. It really is. It's just something about, going through something with someone who's been there, done that. And I compare it to even like in the business world, mentoring, having a mentor. It's a really important thing to have. And I think the support group has actually been sometimes more effective than actual treatment with my therapist and psychiatrist. But ultimately, I use them all together. I use them all together, and that's what makes things work. Also, wanted to say this, I exercise. I gotta exercise more, I know that, but I gotta, take it day by day. But I exercise, I meditate, I journal, and I'm intentional about it. A lot of times I would wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is go on Facebook. I'm trying to get better at that, where I'm in a morning routine. And when I do that, it sets me up for a great day. So all things can happen, and I'm cool. But when I'm not doing that, man, my depression spirals, and that's just the beginning of a downward spiral. So that's how I take care of myself. It's a great question, and I'm going to say something controversial. I'm going to put this on video. And I'm speaking as a black person and a person of color. And in the black community, we have a tendency to spend a lot of time, effort, and money impressing each other. Like, we like to look good to each other. We like to show up in style and put our best foot forward. And I ultimately think that's a proactive thing. You want to look your best to others, but that's also a problem because sometimes you're a hot mess. Sometimes you're a hot mess and it's ugly and it doesn't look good to others. And I think it's really important that if you are struggling with mental health challenges and you're a person of color, you're okay with that, not looking good to others. And also, I think it's important in the minority communities to actually get a better grasp on the vocabulary surrounding mental health. In a lot of cultures, they don't have a term, a word for mental health or depression or anxiety. So it's really important that in order for minority people of minority cultures to transform the stigma surrounding mental health is to get better at understanding what the vocabulary is, and it'll make it much easier to actually talk about. But at the end of the day, it's learning to just be yourself. I would love to sit on this video and appear like a really strong, powerful black man. And here I'm talking about my pain, my challenges. I cry a lot, It doesn't make me weak, it just makes me me. And I think it's been a beautiful journey. If you embrace the journey, you actually learn a lot about yourself. I used to run away from my depression. I used to run away from the anxiety. Now it's like a wonderful teacher. It teaches me so many cool things about myself. It's helped with my career. It's helped me make more money. It's helped me help others. It's helped me laugh more. And dare I say, I have used the H word recently. It's made me happier. So that's why I encourage people to just keep moving forward, talking about it, and being okay with just being you.